We're live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, coming up in the next 30 minutes. Donald Trump defeats Haley in high-stakes New Hampshire polls project. Trump moves closer to White House nomination. NATO chief welcomes Turkish approval of Sweden's NATO membership bid after 20-month delay. Hungary's approval still needed to enlarge Western bloc. UK to continue to degrade Houthis' capability as 24 nations conduct strikes in Yemen. UN chief says de-escalation in Yemen is essential and attacks on ships must end immediately. And in sports, Indian women's team to face Poland in the inaugural edition of the FIH Hockey's 5S Women World Cup in Muscat on Wednesday. And on to details now. Former President Donald Trump will win New Hampshire's GOP primary, according to projections, defeating Nikki Haley and further cementing his hold on the Republican Party. The polls puts Trump ahead with almost 53.5% votes, while Nikki Haley stands at around 45%. However, Trump's last remaining rival in the race, Haley, is not yet ready to concede. Delivering remarks from Concord soon after voting, she said the race is far from over. She had finished third in Iowa primary. Opinion polls had earlier put Trump as the clear front-runner after his commanding win in last week's Iowa caucuses. Economy, immigration, fentanyl crisis are some of the top concerns of voters in the elections this year. Well, DD India correspondent Nick Harper tells us more on this.
We were at a rally that she had in the city of Exeter, New Hampshire, and she seemed to appeal to the younger, college-educated voters, many of her messages seeming to resonate with them. But this is perhaps her last best shot at showing that she can become the Republican nominee. A big win for Donald Trump may make it hard for Nikki Haley to hang on in the race, although she is saying no matter what happens here in New Hampshire, she intends to compete in the next few state-by-state primaries, one in Nevada and then one in South Carolina in just over a month's time. She's hoping to do well there, as she is the former governor of that state. But it will all depend on what the results are here in New Hampshire on Tuesday evening. Nick Harper in Manchester, New Hampshire, reporting for DD India.
Well, Turkey's parliament approved Sweden's NATO membership bid on Tuesday following more than 4 hours of debate. Lawmakers voted 287 in favor and 55 against, clearing a last major hurdle to expanding the Western military alliance after 20 months of delays. Erdogan will sign the bill into law likely in coming days. Hungary remains the only NATO member yet to ratify Stockholm's accession. President Tayyip Erdogan's ruling AK party, its nationalistic MHP allies and the main opposition CHP voted in favor of the bid in the General Assembly, while opposition nationalist, Islamist and leftist parties voted against it. And moving on, the United States and the United Kingdom carried out additional strikes on Monday against 8 targets in Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen. In a joint statement, the UK said the strikes were carried out with support of 24 countries, including Australia, Germany, Bahrain, Canada and the Netherlands. The UK Prime Minister's office further said that these strikes were designed to disrupt and degrade the capability of the Houthis to continue their attacks. UK PM Rishi Sunak said that initial evidence from Monday's strikes showed all intended targets were destroyed. Also, the Pentagon said that over 5 Houthi missile launch facilities and more than 20 missiles in Yemen have been destroyed so far. Meanwhile, the UK is planning fresh sanctions against the Houthis post-strikes. UK PM Rishi Sunak has also tried to de-link what's been happening in the Red Sea with Israel-Hamas conflict. The Houthis surely don't see it that way. Where are these hostilities going? DD correspondent Sarah Coates tell us more from Tel Aviv.
We are going to use the most effective means at our disposal to cut off the Houthis' financial resources where they are used to fund these attacks. We are working closely with the United States on this and plan to announce new sanction measures in the coming days.
Of course, there is a lot of fear that this could cause a wider spillover, a wider escalation in the Middle East. We've heard from Britain's Foreign Secretary, Lord Cameron. He has addressed this latest round of strikes, saying that he is confident they've been effective on the Houthis, adding that their narrative on these strikes being related to this war inside the Gaza Strip should not be accepted. Now, we did hear also from the United States pretty stern words late last week. They said that it has other options if these attacks do continue on this major shipping lane there in the Red Sea, but failed to elaborate any further as to what these other options could be.
And UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has urged countries to avoid an escalation in the situation in the Red Sea, where Houthis in Yemen have been attacking commercial vessels amid the ongoing war in Gaza. In a statement, the Secretary-General said, and I quote, "The situation in the Red Sea is also deeply worrying. Houthi attacks are disrupting global trade. These have been followed by airstrikes by the United States and the United Kingdom on Houthi position in Yemen. De-escalation is essential, and all attacks on merchant and commercial vessels in the Red Sea must cease immediately," unquote. Well, the risks of broader regional escalation are now becoming a reality. Turning to the north, Israeli government spokesperson Eloavin Levi said that Israel will not agree to a ceasefire deal with Hamas. He added that efforts were ongoing to bring about the release of the hostages, but declined to elaborate, saying lives were hanging in the balance.
The goals of this war, as laid out by the War Cabinet after the October 7th massacre and handed down to the IDF, remain unchanged: the destruction of Hamas's governing and military capabilities in the Gaza Strip and the return of all the hostages. There will be no ceasefire that leaves the hostages in Gaza and Hamas in power. Beyond that, we have nothing to elaborate.
And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Tuesday that Israel would push on with fighting in Gaza until absolute victory, despite suffering one of its toughest days of the military offensive. He said the military was investigating the tragedy in which 21 soldiers were killed when buildings exploded in central Gaza, bringing the single-day Israeli death toll to 24. Also, United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres appealed for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. On Tuesday, UN chief said that the humanitarian situation in the Palestinian enclave was appalling and that the people of Gaza not only risk being killed or injured by relentless bombardments, they also run a growing chance of contracting infectious diseases like hepatitis A, dysentery and cholera. Moving on, U.S. Middle East envoy Brett McGurk to travel in the region for active discussions on ensuring the release of hostages held by Hamas in Gaza and securing a humanitarian pause. White House spokesperson John Kirby said the U.S. would support a longer humanitarian pause in combat in Gaza to ensure hostages could be released and aid brought in. Also, British Foreign Secretary David Cameron will travel to Israel on Wednesday, where he is expected to raise concerns over Israel and Gaza conflict. Cameron's trip, which will include visits to the West Bank and to Qatar and Turkey, is his third to the Middle East in just over 2 months. And shifting focus to Russia-Ukraine war now, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Russian missiles hit Ukraine's 2 largest cities, killing 18 people and injuring more than 130. A wave of Russian missiles hit Ukraine's 2 largest cities on Tuesday. There were strikes on Kyiv and in central Ukraine and the southern region of Kherson, subject to constant shelling. More than 200 sites were hit, including 139 dwellings, with many deaths in an ordinary high-rise apartment building. Ordinary people live there, he said. Kharkiv Regional Governor Oleho Sinehababov said more than 100 high-rise blocks had been damaged in the first two attacks. There were 3 hits in the evening on an apartment block and other infrastructure also.
Regarding the Russian attack in the morning, almost 40 missiles of different types, another combined strike to try and bypass our air defense system. A significant portion of missiles were shot down. Unfortunately, there are hits. More than 200 different objects were damaged. 139 houses only, ordinary houses. 130 people were injured or traumatized. All of them are provided with the necessary assistance. Unfortunately, 18 people lost their lives. My condolences to the family and friends. And this number of dead may still increase. In particular, a rescue operation is still ongoing in Kharkiv. The rubble of the building is being searched. An ordinary high-rise building, ordinary people live there.
And Luxembourg's Foreign Minister Xavier Bettel said it will be hard to get Hungary to back more financial aid to Ukraine at a European Union summit next week on Tuesday. He added Ukraine needed both military and financial assistance.
When you blackmail, in fact, the other 26, it's difficult. I know Viktor Orban well. I know him by knowing that it won't be easy to convince him. We had a difficult agreement last time, I'm right. And what is not good is that from the outside, it was considered for some people like a deal.
And Germany's Finance Minister Christian Lindner said the country can't keep up Ukraine's defense capabilities on its own in the long term and that others will need to increase bilateral contributions on Tuesday. He added Germany's efforts to assist Ukraine cannot be attributed to others doing less, calling instead for a fair burden sharing of cost at the EU level. The minister viewed Ukraine as ready for EU membership and in line with EU values, but added that there were still reforms that needed to be made for private sector investment to take off. And U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Tuesday pledged $45 million in additional financing to help fight conflict and bring stability to coastal West Africa. Blinken is on a second stop of a 4-nation tour of Africa, taking him to Cape Verde, Ivory Coast, Nigeria and Angola from January 21st to 26th. Blinken, who is visiting Nigeria as part of an Africa tour to strengthen bilateral relations, said the U.S. will continue to support Nigeria and other regional partners. Blinken also discussed challenges to democracy and security in the region during his meeting with Nigerian President Bola Tinubu in a visit that comes after last year's coup in neighboring Niger.
On security, which we also discussed at some length, the United States is determined to be and remain a strong security partner for Nigeria. I want to extend the condolences of the American people to all Nigerians who were affected by the horrific attacks over the Christmas weekend. We mourn their loss and all killed in recent attacks, including, by the way, staff from our United States mission, locally employed staff and 4 police officers who were killed in Anambra last May. As I told the President and the Foreign Minister, the United States will support Nigeria as it works to bring about a more secure, a more peaceful, and a more prosperous future for its people.
And now let's take a look from news around the world. The U.S. Coast Guard has rescued fishermen trapped on an ice floe near Catawba Island in Lake Erie, Ohio, after dozens of people have died due to freezing temperatures. In Atlanta, an unhoused man set himself on fire and died under a bridge. Tennessee has recorded 27 deaths related to the Arctic blast since last week, and public schools in Nashville have cancelled classes for 6 consecutive days. Benito, the giraffe who spent 50 hours traveling from northern to central Mexico, has arrived at the African Safari Wildlife Park in Puebla, Mexico. The giraffe, who spent his lonely life in a park in Ciudad Juarez, has been relocated after a campaign. African Safari's director, Frank Camacho, said Benito arrived in good health but will need to adapt to new weather conditions, diet and herd before visitors can see him. A body cam video captured the rescue of a child trapped in a frozen pond in Jonesboro, Arkansas. The video shows a police officer pulling the child out of the water, and the child was taken to the hospital for checkups to avoid cold weather injuries. And still to come on this edition of DD India Live. Atomic scientists have kept their doomsday clock set close to midnight. Why? We tell you ahead. Former Chief Minister of Bihar Karpuri Thakur to be awarded Bharat Ratna posthumously for his unwavering commitment to uplift the downtrodden and his visionary leadership. While Italy's Jannik Sinner sets up a semi-final clash against Novak Djokovic, Aryna Sabalenka overpowered Barbora Krejcikova. This and more from the Australian Open ahead.
World that never stops, where information shapes our reality. One app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news goes global, goes digital. Explore a world of options, top stories, live updates, in-depth analysis, and more. Stay informed wherever you are. Real-time alerts keep you ahead of the curve always. The DD India app, connecting you to the world, one story at a time. Download now and explore the world of knowledge, insights, and authentic information.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Lipakshi Kuran, and moving on. Over 100 Guatemalan migrants deported by the US arrived at Guatemala City on Tuesday. The deported migrants, including 17 families and single adults, arrived at Aurora Airport in Guatemala City on a flight chartered by the US government. This latest group of deportees is part of increased deportations involving migrants from Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Colombia and Venezuela. Many migrants in the United States flee their home countries due to economic hardship, violence and political instability. Well, Venezuelan opposition candidate Maria Corina Machado announced an alliance with political parties and civil society organizations that will help organize her campaign to challenge President Nicolas Maduro. Machado also called on authorities to reveal the exact date of the presidential elections. An agreement between the opposition and Maduro's government, signed in Barbados in 2023, said elections would take place in the second half of the year. The campaign has not formally begun, and Maduro has yet to officially announce a bid for re-election. Machado is currently barred from holding public office, calling the ban unfair. Machado has appealed the decision, but the Supreme Court has yet to decide. Well, hundreds of supporters of Venezuela's ruling Socialist Party took to the streets of Caracas in a rally to mark the end of a military dictatorship in the South American nation. Venezuelans typically take to the streets on January 23rd to mark the end of rule by military dictator Marcos Pérez Jiménez 66 years ago. The march was largely attended by supporters of President Nicolas Maduro, taking place near a gathering of opposition supporters. Well, rural Peru experienced flooding due to a river burst, causing crops to be devastated and residents to wade through waist-deep water. The National Meteorological and Hydrological Service of Peru issued an alert on overflowing rivers and floods nationwide. Huánuco and Arequipa areas have heavily impacted with landslides and swollen rivers, causing road damage and leaving thousands isolated. At least 20 villages in Huánuco's Chagla district were cut off due to extreme overflow. And Colombian authorities have battled fires on a hill in Bogota, capital city of Colombia, causing smoke to shroud the city. Firefighting teams from armed forces, national police and civil defense fought the flames on the ground and from the air with helicopters. The fire was confined to 2.5 hectares, but the height and natural topography of the hills have complicated the efforts of the teams. Moving on, Brazil scientists have warned that global warming is causing droughts in the country's semi-arid region, leading to an accelerated desertification process in the farmlands. The affected area is expected to triple from 5,000 square kilometers to 15,000 square kilometers in the coming years. The northeastern Nordeste region has seen the landscape turn yellow with dry plants everywhere. Farmers and vulnerable populations are expected to be most affected by the drought. Well, atomic scientists on Tuesday kept the doomsday clock set precariously close to midnight, citing Russia's actions on nuclear weapons amid its invasion of Ukraine, nuclear-armed Israel's Gaza war and worsening climate change as factors driving the risk of global catastrophe. The bulletin of the atomic scientists, founded in 1945 by scientists including Albert Einstein and J. Robert Oppenheimer, had set the clock last year at 90 seconds to midnight, the theoretical point of annihilation.
Last year, we expressed amplified concern by moving the clock to 90 seconds to midnight, the closest to global catastrophe it has ever been. The risks of last year continue with unabated ferocity and continue to shape this year. Today, we once again set the doomsday clock to express a continuing and unprecedented level of risk. It is 90 seconds to midnight. 90 seconds to midnight is profoundly unstable and must not engender complacency. And two, the advancement of technology is quickening and outpacing our ability to govern them.
And moving on, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar concluded his Nigeria visit with an address to the Nigeria-India Business Council. The minister said that investment and trade are at the heart of partnership between two countries. The minister further pushed for taking ties to a higher level. The event was attended by Nigeria's Ministers of Trade, Budget and Economic Planning, Blue Economy and Steel Development, and the Governor of Nasarawa.
Africa is rising, and India is betting on Africa's rise. We are betting on Africa's rise because by any objective assessment, today there is so much going for Africa in terms of demography, in terms of resources, in terms of ambition, in terms of increasingly of policy alignments, that clearly portend a very different, a much more positive future in the very short term. For us, the reordering of the world, the rebalancing, the multipolarity of the world will not be complete until Africa takes its due place.
Well, Karpuri Thakur, the former Chief Minister of India's Bihar state, will be posthumously awarded Bharat Ratna, the highest civilian award of India. He served as the Chief Minister of Bihar from 1970 to 71 and later in 1977 to 1979. Thakur passed away in February 17, 1988. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in a post on X, mentioned about Thakur's unwavering commitment to uplift the downtrodden and his visionary leadership that have left an indelible mark on India's socio-political fabric. And now let's take a look at other stories making news today. Indian Chief of Defence Staff General Anil Chauhan congratulated the 60-para Field Hospital of the Indian Army on Tuesday for being awarded the prestigious Subhash Chandra Bose Apada Prabhataran Puraskar 2024 for the exceptional work done in disaster management. North India's Jammu and Kashmir Academy of Art, Culture and Languages organized a patriotic and musical concert at Tagore Hall in Srinagar on Tuesday. Many renowned artists performed in the concert. A special divine book hamper has been introduced by India's Chennai book publisher on the occasion of Ram Temple Pran Pratishtha to learn about Lord Ram. The book hamper has a specially crafted kit containing 20 essential items and books in illustrated form as a wallpaper along with the tic-tac-toe game. Bandiur Mariamman Tepalkolum temple is lit up with colourful lights ahead of the annual float festival in the temple town of India in Madurai. The float festival is celebrated annually during the month of January and February by the people of the region with great enthusiasm. And in sports, Indian women's team will face Poland in the inaugural edition of the FIH Hockey 5S Women's World Cup in Muscat, capital of Oman. The Indian team is being led by experienced goalkeeper Rajni Etimapu, while defender Mahima Chaudhary is vice-captain. The Indian women's team is included in Pool C alongside the United States of America, Poland and Namibia. The Netherlands, Malaysia, Fiji and host Oman are in Pool A, while Australia, South Africa, Ukraine and Zambia form Pool B. Group D consists of New Zealand, Uruguay, Thailand and Paraguay. World Cup will take place from 24th to 27th of January 2024. And the Indian men's hockey team will take on France in the four-nation tournament in Cape Town city of South Africa on Wednesday. The week-long tournament features France, the Netherlands, India and host South Africa. In the earlier match, India thrashed France 4-0 as Harmanpreet Singh scored a brace. Lalit Upadhyay and vice-captain Hardik Singh also scored one goal each. India will play the host South Africa on 26th of January and finish the tour with a match against the Netherlands on the 28th of January. An Indian tennis veteran Rohan Bopanna and his Australian partner Matthew Ebden clashed with the sixth-seeded Argentina duo of Maximo Gonzalez and Andres Moltene. In the quarterfinals of the men's doubles at the Australian Open, Bopanna and Ebden, seeded second in the draw, displayed remarkable resilience to secure a 7-6, 7-6 win over the 14th-seeded pair of Wesley Koolhof from the Netherlands and Croatia's Nikola Mektic in prima quarter-final match. In an Australian Open, Italy's Jannik Sinner has set up a mouth-watering semi-final against Novak Djokovic as he fought off Andrei Rublev in a late-night duel in the quarter-finals. The fourth seed showed patience and resilience to claim a 6-4, 7-6, 6-3 win against the Russian, who now owns the ugly record of 10 defeats out of 10 in Grand Slam quarter-finals. And fifth seed Rublev threw the kitchen out of Arina Sabalenka overpowered Barbora Krejcikova 6-2, 6-3 in a quarter-final to keep her Australian Open title defence firmly on course. She has set up a showdown with US Open champion Coco Gauff in the semi-final. The second seed hammered her serves and ground strokes over the net. She broke the 9th-seeded Czech 3 times and clinched the first set after a little more than 30 minutes. The meeting between Sabalenka and Gauff could go a long way to deciding who takes home the trophy. And that's all for this edition of DD India Live. Well, let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Nipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.